Yeah, just a couple updates. From an injury standpoint, Keith, Randolph, and Reggie are making progress. We'll see where they're at. They haven't been cleared yet, but hopefully get there by game time. Malik Elzy, I think, will practice with us tomorrow. And then really Tariq Barnes and Geske both really got cleared last Thursday or Friday, literally right before our trip over there. So that's why we took them, but they really hadn't got reps for 2 weeks. So they'll be fully engaged in the game plan this week. And then I know a couple of you guys probably have asked. Caden obviously came out of the game at the end, but he had no issue, just full go for practice for us moving forward. So really from the game, came out pretty healthy, to be quite honest. Got a couple guys back for this week, which is always good, and see where they're at. Obviously, this Wisconsin team has transitioned a lot. You know, we've had several rematch games. Purdue, Nebraska were both rematch games, but new staffs, right? So it's another rematch game, but obviously a totally different makeup, kind of what we saw from a year ago. There is some carryover on the defense side of the ball, but offensively, obviously new personnel, the running back, obviously, but personnel used in different ways. So this is kind of a totally new opponent in that regards. Excited to get back here in Memorial, and this is our 8th week, right? So there's some things that we started doing last week in practice. I thought our guys really responded well. I did some things Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday last week to kind of increase their mental reps and decrease their physical reps, and obviously played a 4-quarter game and played really strong at the end. So we'll mirror some of that coming forward this week and go forward. So with that, congratulations to Seth and Caden, two guys get Big Ten Player of the Week. I think that's a huge deal and very well deserved. I thought I asked Bret after the game, are we going to nominate Caleb for the walk-off field goal or Isaiah for the 2 punt returns, and then had the Penn State kid get 2 punt returns for touchdowns, so I understand why he got it. And obviously the punter for Iowa going over 400 yards is a special treat. So too bad for those two guys. They couldn't get Special Teams Player of the Week, but very well deserved.
Every week is the same for you guys, but what's the key as a coaching staff when you do win? What do you emphasize to sustain?
Yeah, really stay status quo. Our schedule for Sunday really remains the same. Win or lose, I might tweak it, just because of the number of reps in a game, like the amount of time that we devote to the opponent versus the upcoming opponent. But we pretty much every Sunday kind of put the game to bed, win or lose, and then have a brief dinner break. We did have a victory meal, which I think our guys really enjoy. I know coaches enjoy as well. And then jumped into our preparation for Wisconsin. Sometimes we'll take them out on the field, depending on kind of where we are injury-wise and everything. But for the most part, that Sunday, the reason we do that is to really win or lose. You flush it and move on. And I want them to hear walking out of the building on Sunday night, nothing but our next opponent, which obviously was Wisconsin. So they turn the page, and then today is a day off, but we see a lot of our kids come through, watch film, get early game plan thoughts, and obviously come over and get a lot of treatment. Some of our guys do a voluntary lift on Monday as well.
What changed for you or flipped in that timeout to go from calling field goal before half to going for it?
The confidence in my coaches, Barry Lunny. I asked him if he felt good about the call, and he immediately answered, said he felt great with the call. All the offensive coaches felt that way. And then, there was a little bit of a three-headed monster going into that little scenario, right? We got really close on the pass play, so we were trying to get a read from the officials on whether or not the ball was crossed. They've gotten really hairy this year about coaches leaving the box. I was trying to get down there to ask the question, and the clock was running, and I had one timeout to use, obviously. So a little bit of that going on with the addition to if it was short, do we want to go for it? Do we want to kick the field goal? And then obviously when they called timeout, that kind of cleared everything up for us and let us go to that moment.
Position of short yardage
Yeah.
that we talked a lot about in recent weeks. Is there any confidence carry over your offense, your coaches?
Well, you go back to last Sunday. I had a meeting. I always, meet with both sides of the ball. We meet as a staff, but then I'll sit down. And one of the things I directed staff last Sunday was we were going to put in instead of having Wednesday be our third and short and fourth and short install, I moved it to Monday, and then we repped it Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And obviously the first 3rd and 1 was on the very first drive that converted, and then obviously the next play was a touchdown, and I made a big deal of that Sunday night in my presentation to the team about how we win games, and a lot went into that prep and a lot went into the results.
Do the, maybe more mental reps, a little fewer physical reps. Is it always, are you always looking at that midpoint of the season, or do you adjust for the team or schedule? Or?
Yeah, I think as a head coach, it's one of the things that I think like today, I had 3 sheets laying in front of me of kind of tomorrow's practice schedule, and I'd kind of gone back and forth several times with what I wanted to do was trying to tweak it between a certain number of periods and a certain number of walkthrough periods. And Mark Torson, our chief of staff, he came in, and I think he saw all 3 sheets, and I kind of went with one. But I modeled it a lot off of what we did last year in Week 8 a little bit. There's a little bit of carryover from where you've done things in the past, but really it's about this year's team, right? And last year and last week in particular, we had those 2 freshman running backs. We knew they were going to be probably the guys on Saturday, so we wanted to get a lot of good early down reps with them. So we kind of increased the number of early down reps and minimized the number of third down reps that they took. So it's a little bit of give and take each week, to be quite honest. But yes, you do all year long kind of taper as you get going, and then obviously coming out of the bye week, we'll use a little bit different schedule because we'll get an extra day of preparation or a couple days of preparation for that as well.
Yeah, the game plan and really the execution offensively, was that more indicative of the identity that you want to have as an offense?
Are you talking about this past week? Yeah, well, anytime you have success, that's an easy answer, right? But I do think, Barry in particular, felt really good going into the game. Talked about things the week after that, obviously out of the Nebraska game, and I think early on we kind of, the way Reggie was moving around, and obviously we knew we weren't going to have Josh. I said, hey, let's just go with the game plan of we're going to have Caden and Aiden as the availability and Fidanzo as the running back tandem, and let's go from there. We devised a game plan, and anytime he gained 12 yards on the first play, it was a pretty impactful play, and then had a nice mix on that first series of some run and pass, and then I think the 3rd and 1 that converted into the touchdown the next play really had a huge part, and then we scored on series 1, 6, 7, and 8 of 12 series, right? So 6 was the one right at the end of the half, obviously, that resulted, and that was directly from a guy of ours stripping the ball out. Kanena recovered it, and then we had an end-of-half series, and then we came out and double-dipped. And I kind of knew locks, like we've said, I knew they put a huge emphasis. He comes from the same coaching tree as I about kind of the Belichick, Saban double dipping. That's a big thing with those guys, and I knew what I was trying to do, and I also knew what they were trying to do.
Coach, I know Wisconsin is the focus, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but you got 5 conference games left. A lot of things still available to you. Do you guys talk about that at all as a team?
Yeah, I think. But anytime on Sundays, as a head coach, I usually. I at the end zone in on what we're doing, but I do take a picture about where we're at, what we're doing, whether it's win or lose. We talk about it. I think that where we're at right now, to be a 3-4 football team, I was more emphasis on what we got to do to take care of this week than anything else. Kind of like when we're in that little bit of a stretch of adversity too. Like the best thing you can do is focus on the now, and that gets you to where you want to be.
There was 30 times on Saturday.
What's that?
30 times on Saturday where the guy who touched the football on offense, the center, the quarterback, and the skill guy was not more than 20 years old. Do you think about the youth that you have right now? And I know you have a standard for
That's a
it.
great
You guys
PFF
have,
stat. You had to research that. You had to do some work on that.
But I know you have a standard for you want them in Week 8, but is there excitement about where they could be?
I think it was very apparent to me, right, when we got into fall camp. I remember, I think I've said this in here, we got a room of 120 guys, and 40 of those guys have never been with us before, right? And really about half of our travel roster is all new, right? As many veteran players as we had coming back, you take a guy like Miles Scott, who'd been with me for 2 years, but this is his first year at free safety, and there's just little things like that in retrospect, I needed to be a lot cleaner about how we approach the game and how we teach it and what we do. I think that's a balance that you always got to be aware of as a head coach, but we do have a lot of youth that's playing extremely well. I tell you what, to see Dylan Rosiak play the way he has the last couple of weeks, Kanena Olaga, he made a recovery there at the end of half. That end of half drive never happens if I can't tell you who stripped it. Taz says he does it. Johnny said he did it, and Dylan Rosiak said he did it. So regardless, the ball came out, and then that big man was jumping on it, and you see Kanena just literally, if you zoom in on that, it's amazing that he gets that ball out of there, and he's just got a kind of a knack for that. Dylan Rosiak on the 2nd and 9 on that last series, he's one-on-one with a quarterback out in the flat, and he gets him down. There's a play, when they threw to the quarterback on kind of the reverse throwback there. I remember somebody on the headset goes, "It's wide open," and I said, "Miles is there," and Miles took a sideline skinny, which we practiced at probably 6 to 7 times during fall camp, and he just got him down, and 3 plays later, they're punting, So there's so many tangible, fundamental things that our young players are doing well. Sometimes you got to live through some things that you're going through it, but I'm also excited, Johnny and Keith. Obviously, Keith missed last week, but those two guys are probably playing as good a football as I've seen them play. To see Seth Coleman come along and have the production that he did. I actually just literally got a text from OC. I think somebody tweeted it that hadn't been done since OC had done it. So OC he sent that text to me with some wise jokes. It's fun to see the growth of some of these guys continue to get better and better. Alec Bryan is playing really, really well. Gabe had a really good week of practice. I thought he was going to kind of have one of those games. I think when he missed that sack early, that kind of frustrated him a little bit. He's so bound up. But Gabe is really, truly playing pretty good against the run, better than he's ever played. Not the production, but that stuff will come.
We would talk in the past about replacing voices from last year's team, and I'm just wondering how Casey Washington in particular has stepped into that.
I would say that he's probably one of the most, in my opinion, shining examples of someone that's really literally came from when we started here. Well, obviously he left and came back, but my first year, he was battling out some PT time with Hightower a little bit, and there was kind of some going back and forth. And, I really thought last spring his game really took a big jump. And I began to talk to him about, hey, you've been through this a lot. Why don't you continue to express your voice? Because he's very intelligent, very well-spoken. Mom and dad have raised a great kid, just really, and it was interesting on Sunday. Most of the time for me, I always tell our coaches and I tell our players, I coach with my back to the bench, right? So that's a purposeful thing that I do, that I've done that my entire career. I don't turn around much. When I turn around, it's to speak and say something. But most of the time I keep my back to the bench because I have a coach. My responsibility, I think, is to manage the game. I can't imagine these coaches that don't wear headsets or don't stay engaged with what's going on, because I literally, click over and tell defensive things that are going on offense, vice versa. So it's very seldom as a head coach you get to turn around. Obviously during breaks there's a difference. But I said, hey, is there any voices on Sunday, that anybody would like to talk about or be out? And literally 3 or 4 of my coaches, both sides of the ball at the same time, said Casey Washington was unbelievable. And you can just see the confidence ooze out of him. There's a connection between him and Luke. That same play was literally the drive that it wasn't the same because the defense played a little bit different, but that same play that he caught at the end of the game, he caught at the end of the half. Which gave us a big gain as well. So, just a lot of confidence in that young man.
It feels like your offensive line really set a tone there early and throughout the game. What have you noticed, just personnel-wise, about that group gelling?
Practice does make a difference, to be quite honest. And Zai, that was the first time he had literally completed a week of practice in all of fall camp. Zai probably played his best game that he's played since he's been here. So for him to take a step forward, Julian's always played pretty good. Hunter, got better. I do think Geske will be back with us this week. Josh made a noticeable improvement from the last game to this game. So, yeah, there's definitely some positives that are coming forward. And I think, Isaiah Adams, every game he gets at right tackle is just making him improve. So we worked Tanner Arkin. I'm sure you saw that in the mix a little bit. And he was a nice addition in our 12 personnel and then 13 as well. So, we're getting some new faces in there and doing a good job.
Barry said he didn't have the percentage off the top of his head.
Yeah.
If you get it, pretty good chance you're going to win.
Yeah, if you double dip, and really, if you just think about the pure math of it, if you think about different football games you've either watched or been a part of, and if the offense scores 2 times without the defense going on the field, it's usually a turnover, a sudden change, right? That's how it normally happens. People don't notice it much, and because there's a halftime and a band in between, and a trip to the soda stand, right? But that's exactly what happens if you watch a game where an offense scores, and before the other offense takes the field, you get another score. It usually changes the momentum of a game, and that's kind of what it is.
Zach Toby left the game. Do you know what his status is?
Oh yeah, Zach. His was a chest. All the X-rays are negative. He's just a little bit sore, but we do expect him to be back out there. If not this week, he'll be back after the bye week.
For you personally, heading into a Wisconsin game, is there still any emotion, or is it different now that you've kind of got the reunions out of the way?
For me, with Wisconsin coming here, there's always, it was 9 years of my life. I got married in Madison. I have a lot of coaches that are on that staff that are not so much now, but they're always going to be those things. But it literally vanished as soon as I left there. I'd been through it before a couple other times, so just have Luke and I have known each other for a long time. I have a lot of respect for him. Don't know a lot of his coaches, but obviously a guy that has built a lot of tradition. What he did at Cincinnati, he's continued forward there. So just a lot of respect more than anything.
Keith on Saturday.
What's that?
Without Keith on Saturday, what did you
Yeah, I thought Johnny, he kind of took into that role, played him kind of in that position. Bryce Barnes did a nice job. I thought Sid McConnell has just continued to really get a lot better every time. Denzel Daxon, another guy showed up. Alex Bray. We had Pat Farrell there. He didn't get in there, but Pat Farrell had a nice week of work. But I think, in particular, I think Bryce and Sid really jumped forward. Johnny just continues to be very impressive. And I didn't realize his whole recruiting thing. That I found out about that midway through the week, that he had committed there and all that goes into it. So I know it was a fun week for all those guys. I think they really just enjoyed the game from A to Z, and obviously that'll carry forward hopefully in our prep against Wisconsin.
You guys obviously do some like pre-scouting work.
Yeah.
What are the logistics when their quarterback gets knocked out
Yeah.
the week before? What is the early part of the
So I had watched a lot of North Carolina film specifically, right? Obviously during the spring and during the summer, and just trying to get a feel for Longo, and obviously that was a different quarterback, right? So I kind of had looked at it through that perspective, and there are some things obviously that carry over from there, but they've kind of had their own little Wisco type offense that they got going, I think, which is obviously a big responsibility on the OC, but I can see Luke's hands in certain things probably as a defensive guy. Their quarterback that came in the game, obviously he's a new quarterback, but he's had, experience, and he also, got entire second half, he's got a good feel for the game. Obviously with the running backs, when they're running the way they have, that takes a lot of pressure off them, and I think they're very good up front, and on the perimeter they got some choices. So, but I think anytime you're breaking a new quarterback, there's going to be that get to know you period that I think as coaches we have to prepare really for everything, because they haven't really showed what they can do. I think he moves really well, better than I thought, he moves better than I had hoped, I guess, and creates threats in that ball game as well.
Run game different in this offense, and what's the challenge of Braylon Allen?
Yeah, you mean from what they've been?
Yeah.
Well, it's just totally different. It's 11. It's a lot. They have smaller personnel on the field, but a lot of the same concepts: inside, outside zone. Do some pin pull and some stuff that just still carries over. I think offensively, you've literally seen them kind of change and evolve during the course of the year. Now, anytime you play Iowa, they're a little different, right? They present such a challenge defensively. Sometimes the game plan that you see against Iowa can't carry forward to a lot of what they do. Iowa plays a lot of quarters and plays a 4-down front, which, for us, there's not a lot of carryover into the look. But obviously the Purdue game is a good one for us to take a peek at, and there's some carryover there as well, and even Washington State in some games earlier in the year.
I guess Aaron talked about what he's able to do on third down when it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. I guess, what do you notice out of him as a play caller, just the way your defense connects?
Yeah, so, I've had a lot of defense coordinators. I think, I don't know how many I've had now, but, guys that become head coaches, Charlie Partridge, Chris Ash, Dave Dorn, and obviously Ryan. So I've known Aaron in such a different capacity, right? Like, so he literally came in my office last night, I believe, like 10:30 or so, and I had like 30 plays I wanted to show him or whatever. We went through the game, and all of a sudden I look at the clock and it's 12:30, right? And like you guys sit up here, he can just go, right? Like, because it's when I have an edit I want to watch with him, I like watching it with just he and I, right? Because I like I've been trying to grow him, like one of the things that I really like to do is with young new coordinators is kind of, grow them, work them, and from a defensive point of view, it's a little bit different than offense, but he can really go, right? Like, he can really talk, and like, so it takes us, 2 hours to get through a 30-play edit, right? Because we end up talking about it goes in this direction. But what I've noticed out of him, a play caller, his directness, his assertiveness. We changed some things around last week. I took Andy Boo out of the box and put him on the field, and I took Antonio and Grant Morgan, who's a very talented young coach, and put him upstairs. And Andy had been on the field 2 years in a row. Kevin had always been upstairs, right? And I wanted to see things in the back end. I thought Antonio, and he gave great insight. Antonio and Aaron, they've played together, right? So they have a connection. So I really like the way our staff is evolving defensively and getting to know our players. We've made some adaptations. Some of the things that we do well, some of the things we haven't done well, taking advantage of some personnel, but also not allowing them to take advantage of our personnel, is a big part. I think one of the things defensively you really have to be aware of more than anything is all offensive coaches look for your weakest links, right? They want to look for things they feel they can attack, and when they're doing that, you have to take notice of that because that's what they see, right? It doesn't matter what we see. I always tell them you always got to look at it from an opponent point of view. What are they telling you your issues are, and that's what we really hone in on. Thank you.